Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. As Atlanta, the skyscrapers sparkle under the southern sun, but at their feet, the streets tell another story. A city of contrasts, where fortunes rise as quickly as distrust between communities, where silences sometimes speak louder than political speeches. It is in this setting that Marcus Reed, 43, led a discreet, almost self-effacing existence, like a man in the shadows. Marcus lived in a modest apartment in Decatur, a working-class neighborhood east of Atlanta, where rents were still affordable for those the city had forgotten. Every morning, he poured black coffee from a chipped cup, greeted the same tired faces at the laundromat downstairs, then launched the Uber app to start his day. He didn't complain. He'd learned, over the years, that complaining didn't change anything. He drove to live, not to dream. Former soldier Marcus had served 2 tours of duty in Iraq in the early 2000s. He never spoke about the war, except when asked respectfully, which was rare. He had seen things there he would rather forget. The dust, the fire, the screams. And above all, the feeling that everything he stood for there, he had to demand again once he returned home. The right to housing. The right to dignity. The right to silence, too. Despite his honorable service, no banner had greeted him on his return, no patriotic speeches, no guaranteed job. Only an empty promise and a world moving on without him. He'd been a security guard, a night cashier, an Amazon delivery driver, then an Uber driver. It was the only job that allowed him some control over his schedule, over his solitude. Marcus was a tall, heavy-set black man, always clean-shaven, with a deep, steady voice. He inspired confidence, but it was quickly forgotten. In a busy world, people don't linger on a face like his. It wasn't malice. It was institutional indifference, the one that covers ordinary people like a second skin. Passengers entered his car, often without even greeting him. They tapped on their phones, put in their earphones. Sometimes a thank you, a have a nice day. Nothing more. He didn't expect more. But that Thursday, fate had other plans. It was almost midnight when Marcus received a notification. A ride from a community center in the neighborhood of Bankhead, not far away, an area he knew well. The streets were poorly lit, the sidewalks uneven, but it was also where the heart of Atlanta beat, where families gathered, where charities still tried to put out the fires ignited by neglect. He accepted the race. Arriving there, he recognized the building, a former gymnasium converted into a multipurpose hall. Families were emerging in clusters outside the doors, the children holding balls, bags of food, and sometimes toys. The smell of hot dogs still hung in the air, mingled with the smell of hot tar. Peals of laughter, mothers calling their children back, volunteers putting away plastic chairs. A charity event had just ended, one of those local initiatives that never appear in the newspapers, but which keeps humanity alive. Marcus slowed down and rolled down his window. A woman approached the car. She was wearing a plain dress, carrying a bag over her shoulder, and holding a little boy's hand. There were dark circles under her eyes, but she maintained a dignified smile. "Good evening, are you Marcus? This is for me and my son. We're going to the south side." She spoke in a calm, gentle voice. Marcus nodded. The boy, about 9 years, wore a suit too big for him, probably donated by an association. He was holding a box of cupcakes, clumsily decorated with colored icing. He stared at Marcus with a mixture of curiosity and shyness. "Hello, young man," Marcus said with a small smile. The child didn't answer, but his eyes sparkled. He looked proud, as if he'd just returned from an important ball. His mother helped him into the back seat, while Marcus opened the passenger door. The engine purred softly as he pulled out of the parking lot. At that time, no one knew yet that in a few minutes, the night would tip over, that a simple ride in a Honda Civic would become a battlefield, that the boy with the wobbly cupcakes would have a near-death experience, and that the man behind the wheel, whom no one ever saw, would finally be seen by an entire nation. They had barely left the parking lot, entering the dimly lit street, when the air seemed to freeze. Marcus could still smell the sweet aroma of cupcakes mixed with that of the warm April night, when a low rumble burst out in the distance, like a brutal warning. Then, this noise transformed into a chaotic din, ever closer, shattering the fragile tranquility of the neighborhood. of the heartbreaking screams burst out, mixed with the screams of tires screeching on the asphalt. Marcus instinctively turned his head toward the source of the noise. Two black cars sped up from the end of the street, heading straight for them. The first car, a sedan with tinted windows, was closely followed by a massive SUV. The headlights reflected metallic shards, and suddenly, the terrifying sound of gunshots burst forth, shattering the night like apocalyptic lightning. Marcus felt his heart leap, an icy sensation running through his veins. "Get down," he yelled, his voice firm and full of urgency. Without hesitation, he grabbed Elijah by the arm, pulling him down from the front seat, then slammed him onto the floor of the car, covering himself with his entire massive body. The little boy, frozen, stared at Marcus with wide, frightened eyes, still clutching his now shaky box of cupcakes. On the other side, Elijah's mother let out a piercing, almost animal-like scream, a mixture of fear and rage. Her hands desperately gripped the door handle, her nails white from the force of her grip. A bullet ripped through the rear window with a shrill sound of shattering glass, sending shards glittering through the cabin. Another bullet grazed Marcus's shoulder, causing a sharp burn, a hot breath on his skin. The reflex took over. With a precise, methodical, almost military gesture, Marcus put the car into reverse. The engine roared under his firm hand. He backed up slowly, avoiding debris and other cars, trying to get out of the murderous chaos which had just fallen upon them. His gaze never left the windshield, searching for an opening, an escape route. He slalomed between double-parked cars, guided by instinctive concentration mixed with adrenaline. His training as a soldier, the long hours spent in combat zones, resurfaced in every movement. The sound of gunfire continued, frightening, close at hand. Shards of glass, bangs of metal, distant screams. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, they managed to get away from the scene. Marcus took the first lit gas station he could see, the bright neon lights casting a cold glow on the asphalt. He turned off the ignition, gasping. A burning pain pulsed in his arm, and a red stain was beginning to spread beneath his shirt. "You're hurt," exclaimed the mother, her face pale, her eyes filled with tears. Marcus raised his hand to his shoulder, feeling the damp warmth of blood. "It's nothing," he replied in a hoarse voice, trying to reassure himself as much as them. "Is the little one okay?" Elijah, frozen, his face drawn with shock, still clutched his box of cupcakes, now stained with dust and shards of glass. His eyes, still incredulous, searched for a guide in Marcus's calm, protective face. "Yes, he's just a little shaken," his mother replied softly, stroking the boy's head, trying to convey some calm to him. Marcus got out of the vehicle, pressing firmly on his wound to stem the bleeding. His gaze swept the now silent street, the shadows of the two cars that had disappeared into the night. They quickly called for help. When the sirens wailed in the distance, a wave of relief mixed with anxiety washed over them. The police arrived within minutes, their flashing lights swirling in the night, briefly illuminating their tired faces. Marcus refused to go to the hospital immediately. He needed to be sure that the mother and boy were out of danger, that the nightmare could truly end. For the first time in a long time, he felt that his life, until then drowned in routine and oblivion, had just taken on an unexpected meaning, that of a protector in a city where security is a rare luxury. The next morning, Atlanta woke to news that was both heartwarming and shocking. Marcus Reed's story was everywhere, carried by radio waves, television screens, and smartphones. In cafes, offices, and subways, people were talking about this man who had risked his life to save a child. On local television, Elijah's mother, her voice trembling and her eyes red with emotion, recounted, tears rolling down her cheeks. This man saved my son. He put himself between him and the bullets. He risked his life without hesitation. Marcus Reed, he's a hero. A true hero." The heartbreaking testimony touched thousands of viewers. Soon, CNN picked up the story, spreading it nationally. Social media was ablaze. Hashtags like #HeroInTheShadows and #MarcusReed flooded in, accompanied by messages of admiration, videos of Marcus in his Uber rides, tributes from veterans and strangers. Marcus's face, until then anonymous, became that of ordinary heroism, with a quiet but powerful courage. Invitations poured in. He was invited to talk shows where he spoke with simplicity, never seeking the limelight. His words resonated, imbued with profound humility. I only did what a man should do. Protect a child, even if he isn't mine. In a world often obsessed with the spotlight, Marcus embodied an understated, unassuming grandeur. The town's veterans came to greet him, shaking his hand respectfully, recognizing in him the same strength they had once shared in adversity. Some shed a tear, reminding everyone that courage has no age or perfect uniform. Uber publicly announced a bonus for Marcus, a rare gesture, as well as a ceremony planned to award him the Civilian Bravery Medal, but Marcus remained true to himself, insisting that his gesture not become a spectacle. Meanwhile, Elijah and his mother's lives were also changing. The child, still fragile in his silence, found in Marcus a role model. A few weeks later, a letter arrived from Marcus. It was written in clumsy handwriting, full of hope and gratitude. Dear Marcus, thank you for being my shield that night. One day, I want to be like you, brave, strong, and able to protect those I love. Elijah. Marcus reread this letter several times, his heart aching with emotion. This little boy, whose life he had protected, had found in him a light, a guide. Yet despite the recognition and attention, Marcus chose to return to his simple life. His apartment in Decatur, his Uber rides, the streets he knew so well. But something had changed. He was no longer invisible. With every ride, passengers smiled at him, thanked him, sometimes with tears in their eyes. His name circulated, his story inspired. Marcus wasn't looking for fame or applause. What he wanted was peace, the peace of having done what was right. But his gesture remained etched in the collective memory, a vibrant symbol. In an America often fractured by fear and division, Marcus Reed proved that sometimes, in the midst of chaos, a simple man emerges. An ordinary man who, by choosing to protect the life of another before his own, changes everything.